Unveiling 3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister hauntings and unexplained terror revealed, the whispers of the past echoed through the walls, dark secrets swirling like vengeful spirits trapped between the cracks of this suburban facade. Sarah, a 35-year-old single mother, had barely begun to grapple with the loss of her husband when she realized the shadows had grown heavier in their home. Jack, her 7-year-old son, was all energy, and Lily, her 5-year-old daughter, giggled innocently. But those sounds now felt like thin covers stretched taut over fear, ripping at the seams during sleepless nights. The walls of their once warm home took on an eerie life of their own, empty spaces felt oppressively full, vibrating with unspeakable tension. As Halloween approached, the whole neighborhood buzzed with tales of a notorious haunted house just down the street. They said it was cursed, a home once consumed by sorrow, where families had unraveled, their lives turning to ash in an instant. Sarah had dismissed the stories at first, treating them as mere whispers from children with overactive imaginations. But then, she noticed the scratches in her yard, deep, unnatural marks forming shapes that sent shivers down her spine. Each discovery, each new mark in the grass, became a shadow haunting her daytime thoughts. "Jack, stay close," she urged one crisp evening as they walked home from school. The chill in the air wasn't solely from the approaching winter, it was something darker, wrapping around her like a smothering fog. Once friendly, the neighbor next door began to withdraw, the warmth of his smiles replaced by unsettling stares. The anxiety nested within Sarah swelled, pulsing harder against her chest. Juggling late-night shifts at the diner, she raced back home, heart pounding as she crossed the threshold, afraid of the creeping shadows that seemed to wait for her. It was suffocating. The comfort of routine was now shackled with dread. After all, this was a mother's fight. Protecting her children from the unseen threats felt like an endless battle. Her instincts kicked in as she began digging into the neighbor's past, knocking on doors and piecing together the gossip swirling around him, tales of betrayal and heartbreak that left her chilled. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. What she found made her breath hitch. The neighbor was woven into the very fabric of the haunted history, as if evil had stayed to play in disguise. The night Sarah confronted him, her heart raced, a mix of determination and fear coursing through her. But upon asking for answers, she noticed his face twist, a facade cracking, ugly truths bubbling beneath the surface. Then, the storm hit. Thunder rumbled, branches clawing at her windows, mimicking the sinister shapes from her yard. A knock rang out, insistent and raw. Terror crashed over her like icy water. It was him, the neighbor, and he wasn't alone. The shadows danced, twisting into grotesque forms that mirrored her darkest fears. As Sarah's grip tightened on the doorframe, dread settled heavily in her gut. Who could she trust when even the faces of familiarity turned frightening? Would she uncover the truth before it consumed her family whole? The door shuddered under the weight of the pounding. Sarah's heart raced, each thump reverberating in her chest like a drum, announcing the horror waiting just outside. The man stood there, his silhouette dark against the streetlight, a twisted shadow illuminated by the lightning that danced in the sky. "Let me in, Sarah," he called, his voice gravelly and low, oozing with an unholy urgency. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, 1,000 questions swirling through her mind. What did he want? But the instincts of a mother screamed to protect her children. She could already sense them, nestled upstairs, blissfully unaware of the terror unfolding at their doorstep. "Go away!" she shouted, her voice catching slightly as the storm howled around her. But instead of retreating, he leaned closer, as if daring her to open the door. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he said. The words dripped with menace, and her skin crawled. Suddenly, the front porch light flickered ominously, plunging her into darkness. Panic surged. She pulled her phone from her pocket, fingers quaking as she dialed 911. They were going to believe her, she thought, gripping the phone like a lifeline. 911, what's your emergency? The voice at the other end felt like a warm blanket wrapped securely around her nerves. There's someone he's trying to get in. I think he's dangerous. But before she could finish, the line went dead, cut off by the crack of thunder that resonated through the house. Sarah's mind raced. She turned to glance at the kids, the soft sounds of their laughter echoing from the upstairs playroom. They were innocent, unaware of the creeping darkness seeping through the walls. She needed to get them out, now. Jack! Lily! She called, urgency slicing clean through her fear. Get down here, now! As if obedience were a game, their tiny footsteps rushed down the stairs. Jack, eyes wide, clutched Lily's hand, their innocent faces just a breath away from apprehension. Mommy, what's wrong? Jack asked, voice trembling. Just stay with me, she whispered, taking their small hands in hers. Together, they huddled in the narrow hallway. The pounding still echoed at the door, unsettlingly persistent. Let me in, Sarah. You can't protect them forever. What did he know? Her heart raced with questions as dread allowed cold fingers to creep down her spine. She turned back towards her children, the resolve solidifying in her chest. She would not let him win. Then the lights flickered once more, casting long, exaggerated shadows that danced across the walls. She needed a plan. Looking around, an idea sparked. The back door led to the yard and ultimate escape. But as she glanced toward it, the sound of footsteps echoed in the darkened hallway. Sarah, his voice slithered through the air, rising like fog. It didn't sound like the man she had confronted before. The shadows shifted behind him, a haunting chorus of whispers. It's time to end this. Her instincts screamed, and she began to back away, drawing her children closer. But there was nowhere to go. The door stood locked, acting as a feeble barrier between her family and the nightmare. Suddenly, she heard the faintest scrape of nails against the wood, a sound so chilling it silenced her breath. The walls seemed to pulse, tightening the air around them. Mommy, whispered Lily, her tiny voice cracking, eyes wide with fear, and then it happened. The front door exploded open, flinging the man into the living room, eyes blazing with an unholy fire. You cannot hide from what is coming. As Sarah backed further into her home, heart pounding, she realized they were all tangled up in a history she should have never brushed aside. What were the shadows in her yard? What was he bringing into their lives? Desperation clawed at her throat. Run! She screamed, but just as they turned, an agonizing wail echoed through the air, freezing their movements. The shadows emerged from the corners of the room, distorting and twisting, hungry for them, and just like that, hope faded into the fabric of night. Would they be consumed by the darkness? Would the whispers of the past reclaim their spirits for eternity? Sarah clenched her jaw, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had to fight, but how could she battle something rooted in the secrets of her own home? With dread weighing on her heart, she realized she was not just fighting for survival. She was fighting to uncover truths that wished to remain hidden. What dark layers of torment would peel away next? Would she dare dive deeper into the history that haunted her family? The next revelation loomed just beyond the shadows, lurking like a predator in the night. The shadows coiled around Sarah and the kids like creeping vines, suffocating and oppressive. The man stood there, his eyes glimmering with a savage hunger, as if delighted by their fear. You can't escape, he said, the edges of his grin stretching too wide, too unnatural. Time seemed to halt, thick with dread, every second stretching into eternity. Mommy, I'm scared. Jack whimpered. Sarah squeezed their hands tighter, willing courage to radiate from her skin. We're not going anywhere, she whispered, but her resolve was crumbling. The shadows whispered now, their voices a discordant symphony that seeped into her mind, filling her with panic. They beckoned, promising safety if only she would listen. "No!" she gasped, slapping her hands against the sides of her head to shut them out. "We have to go. Now!" With all her strength, she pulled her children towards the back door. She could feel their small bodies trembling against hers, their wide eyes searching for reassurance. The seconds felt like hours, but they couldn't linger any longer. However, just as they reached the door, a wall of shadows surged forward like a tidal wave, a pulse of darkness blocking their escape. Behind them, the man stepped forward, laughter filled with a twisted glee. "You opened the door by inviting me in. You think you can leave?" Sarah's heart sank. "What do you want?" she managed, her voice a whisper. He loomed closer, the light catching on his teeth, a flash of white against the darkness. "Retribution for sins past. It's time for the truth to surface." The room seemed to constrict, the walls growing closer, the shadows crawling in tighter. Desperation clawed at her throat. "The kids, you can't hurt them." He chuckled, low and rumbling, echoing around her like thunder. "They'll be just fine. It's you I'm after." The truth wrapped around her like barbed wire at his words. What truth? She hesitated, caught between dread and curiosity. Could it involve what she had buried deep within her, what she never dared to confront? Just then, the thunder rolled again, reverberating through the house, rattling the windows. The power flickered, leaving jagged shadows writhing. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her small hands clutching Sarah's waist, terror written across her little face. Out of nowhere, the floorboards creaked as if a hidden force was awakening beneath them. The whispers intensified. Let us out, stop it!" Sarah shouted, but her voice cracked, the sound lost in the maelstrom unfolding around her. Then the shadows, wild and feral, began to reform into figures, faces she recognized painfully well. They were lost souls, twisted by anguish and regret. Seasoned by silence, she could almost hear their stories, tales of betrayal and sorrow. "No," she gasped as realization struck her core. The weight of her family's legacy suffocated her, pressing against her heart. These were people she had known, loved, people tied to her by blood and secrets. "Every choice has a cost, Sarah," the man sneered, stepping closer, his voice cloaked in sinister calm. "And the time for reckoning has come." Adrenaline surged again as she realized it wasn't just the children in danger, it was her entire family, those still tied to her through familial bonds. "Run!" she screamed again, this time with a voice laced with raw panic. "Get out of here!" In a burst, she pushed the kids toward the back door, desperation urging them forward. The shadows shrieked, a sound that pierced through the air as they fought against the current of light, but the man lunged, blocking their way, his figure merging with the darkness. "You can't outrun the past." In that moment, Sarah felt the ground tremble beneath her. The air pulsated with energy, danger unfurling from the depths of her history. In a desperate move, she remembered the attic. The whispers might lead to answers. "We have to go upstairs." Before she could think any further, she grabbed her children's hands and darted down the hallway, the storm screaming around them, shadows at their heels, shrieking demands that clawed at the edges of her mind. Would the attic provide the key to their escape or seal their fates forever? As they reached the stairs, echoes of laughter morphed into cries, the past unraveling in the wake of her choice. The deeper they went, the closer the monsters lurked, waiting to reclaim their due in the darkness. What truths would they find lingering in that forsaken space? Would light defeat it, or would shadows consume them all? The attic door loomed above them, inches from the ceiling, its surface rough and splintered. Sarah yanked it open. A cloud of dust erupted, smothering them temporarily. Coughing, she ushered the children inside before the shadows could reclaim their hold. The attic was a forgotten world. Old holiday decorations hung like ghouls, and discarded memories littered the floor, faded photographs, cracked picture frames. Everything felt heavy with history, bearing witness to the sins that stalked her family. "Stay close," she whispered, but the echoes of her own words felt hollow. They huddled together, sensing the urgency in her voice, breathless with fear. The air was thick, oppressive, wrapping around them. Above, the rafters creaked, a sound almost sentient, as though amused by their plight. She turned, locking eyes with her children. "We can't stay here long. We need to find something, anything that can help." As she sifted through boxes, Sarah's fingers brushed against an object wrapped in faded burlap. Pulling it free, she gasped. An old mirror was tucked inside, framed in tarnished silver. The glass shimmered, but something lurked just beneath its surface. A distorted face stared back, contorted in torment. "Mommy, what's that?" Lily shivered, clutching Jack's arm. "It's just a mirror," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. She felt a pull, a sinister gravity, as if the mirror knew her, understood her secrets. The laughter from below surged again, louder this time, a vicious tease. Shadows danced along the walls, writhing like serpents. The man's voice reverberated in the attic, swirling with malevolence. "You think you can hide from the truth? Every action has a consequence. Shut up," she screamed, her heart racing. "Mommy, please," Jack whimpered. Fear lined his eyes, fragile and bright as he glanced at the mirror, the unseen force pressing against their backs, tearing her gaze from the mirror's depths. She caught movement out of the corner of her eye. A shadow detached itself from the wall, whispering and beckoning. In a heartbeat, it swelled, taking form, becoming a recognizable figure. It was her mother. But the face twisted in anguish, skin pallid, eyes wide and desperate. "Sarah, help me," it moaned, arms outstretched, a plea buried in despair. "You have to let them out." The air in the attic turned electric, crackling against her skin. Shadows circled tighter, closing in. "Don't listen," she shrieked, clutching the mirror tightly, its sharp edges biting into her palm. But her heart fluttered with both dread and longing. Her mother's face, a mix of familiar love turned grotesque. "Mommy," Lily whimpered, squeezed against her, the child's voice threading through Sarah's panic, grounding her. "Look away," Sarah ordered, her throat raw. "Focus on me." She needed to shield her kids from the horrors emerging from the past. But shadows twisted, weaving in and out, pulling at their consciousness, demanding attention. "I can save you, Sarah," her mother whispered, a soft lilt that raked against her spine. "All you have to do is listen." "Stop. You're not real." Sarah tore her gaze from the mirror, feeling as if something inside her was on the verge of breaking. The darkness hissed louder, twisting around her legs, tugging at her resolve. Suddenly, a shrill voice broke through the heavy air. "The attic holds the key to your family's curse." Sarah's pulse raced, the warning hanging like a live wire. "We have to touch the mirror," she breathed. "It might reveal our way out." "Mom." Jack's voice cracked. "Don't do it." But time slipped. Shadows churned, swirling with impatience. "You must choose, Sarah. Regrets or redemption." With trembling hands, Sarah stepped toward the mirror, the pull impossible to resist. Only a heartbeat remained, the walls vibrating with longing. As she reached out, the surface rippled like water. Would the reflection reveal clarity or obliterate everything? What would she find peering back at her in the glass? A path to salvation or a descent into madness? With her heart pounding in defiance, she pressed her palm flat against its cold surface, ready to unveil the truth of her family's dark legacy. But the shadows surged, threatening to pull them all into the unknown. The moment of truth hovered, teetering on the edge. What horrors awaited their discovery? What dark secret lay waiting just beyond the glass? The moment her palm pressed against the glass, everything changed. The mirror rippled violently, distorting the reflections of her wide, terrified eyes. A low hum vibrated through the air, deep and resonant, as if the mirror itself was awakening. "Mommy!" Jack cried out, his voice frenzied. "What's happening?" Sarah felt her heart in her throat as the mirror began to swirl with images, flashes of faces she hadn't seen in years-old family photos, laughter that had turned into screams, memories wrapped in sorrow. She pulled her hand back, but it was too late. The glass pulled her in, the shadows clawing at her, merging their cries with her own rising panic. "Come on, Mom!" Lily cried, pulling at Sarah's leg. The child's grip was firm yet trembling, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around them. But Sarah was already lost in the depths of the shifting glass, entranced and terrified. Faces flickered her father's angry gaze, her brother's sorrow, and then a wave of darkness blanketed them all. She felt it take her into what felt like memories wrapped in darkness. A strange sense of vertigo swept through her, pulling her deeper toward the truth lodged in the mirror. Wisps of shadow slithered around her feet, as if each step was weighed down by the ghosts of their past. "Stay back!" Sarah shouted, her voice echoing against the jagged walls. But the shadows grew more restless, sneering, splitting into shrill shrieks of laughter that echoed sinisterly. "Let us out!" cried a voice, jagged and coal-black, charging the air with malevolence. It sounded agonizingly familiar. "Let us in!" The cries multiplied, echoes of past grievances swelling around her, pulling at her essence. Each shriek held a thread of truth, entwined with the darkness of her lineage. "Don't listen!" She yelled again, but doubt crept into her mind, weaving its way through her resolve. What if these shadows, these voices, were part of a bigger picture she never understood? "Mom, we can't stay here." Jack's voice trembled, filled with dread. "It feels like a trap. Get away from the mirror," she ordered, realizing the danger, her chest tightening as she fought to stay grounded. Then she felt it a shudder beneath her feet, the attic shifting unstable. The ceiling creaked ominously, dust raining down like confetti of despair. A blinding light erupted from the mirror, threatening to engulf them. Shadows twisted into monstrous forms, clawing at her children. "Sarah," her mother's voice echoed, smooth yet tainted. "End this, set us free." "Stop it!" Sarah screamed, fighting back tears. The urge to surrender was intoxicating, the promises heavy and thick like fog. But the fear for her children anchored her. Suddenly, the mirror shattered, the sound piercing through the thick haze, creating a burst of clarity amongst the chaos. Glass shards flew like shooting stars, glinting in the dim light, spiraling toward them. Lily screamed, and Sarah lunged to protect her. She felt the sharp sting of glass slicing her cheek, but in the madness, she found focus. "We need to go. Now!" They turned to escape, the remnants of their ancestral chains dragging behind them. The attic swirled like a cyclone, the shadows screaming in agony as if the fragments of their liberation echoed through the walls. With one final shove, they threw themselves toward the attic door, panting and desperate, praying that whatever lay beyond wouldn't follow. As they crashed through the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous finality, shaking the old house to its bones. But outside the door, silence reigned. Had they escaped, or merely delayed the inevitable? The air felt heavy, charged with the remnants of what had just transpired. "Did it work?" Jack whispered, eyes wide with uncertainty. And then they heard it, a low scraping sound, a whisper from the other side. "You can't escape your past." Sarah froze, dread washing over her. What had they unleashed? What price would they pay for the truth? As she turned, the shadows gathered, whispering secrets in the dark. Would they find salvation, or was this just the beginning of a far worse nightmare? The door trembled, vibrating under the weight of something sinister pressing against it. Sarah could feel the cold sweat pooling at the back of her neck as she shifted her gaze instinctively towards her children. Jack's small body was tense, his eyes shot wide open. Lily was clinging to Sarah's leg, her small fingers digging in like tiny claws. "Mom," Jack whimpered, his voice cracking. "Sure," Sarah whispered, heart racing, trying to project calm even as her own fear threatened to consume her. The scraping sound continued, persistent and methodical, like nails being dragged over a chalkboard, tearing through the silence with a piercing urgency that felt tangible and alive. "Stay close," she ordered, gripping Lily's hand tightly. She could sense the shadows swirling around them, growing impatient, hungry. The whisper grew louder, almost coherent, as if it were trying to weave a tale they did not want to hear. "You can't outrun what's inside you," it hissed, the voice morphing into her mother's again, unsettling and familiar. "You think the door will hold?" Suddenly, the room felt smaller, suffocating. The walls seemed to bend inward, as if the very structure of the attic was alive, bearing witness to their fear. "Mom! Please!" Jack shouted. His voice broke through, thin and desperate. Sarah turned her head, catching his paralyzing gaze. There was a deep fear there, one that reflected her own. She felt her resolve shaking. "Not now!" she snapped, startled by her own harshness. But the shadows were in control. They crawled towards them, playing tricks with their senses. Bits of memory danced in the air like flames flickering in the night, casting shadows that twisted and morphed into distorted faces. Friends, foes, family lost. The scratching stopped abruptly, replaced with a heavy silence, so loud it felt oppressive. The dark mass beyond the door seemed to be waiting, holding its breath, brimming with an unspeakable intensity that licked at the edges of Sarah's sanity. "Do we stay here? Or go out?" Lily whispered, fear darkening her young voice. "We can't stay," Sarah replied, her throat dry. "But we have to be careful. We don't know what's waiting." With cautious steps, Sarah edged closer to the door, hand trembling on the knob. A wild assortment of emotions raged within her: fear for her children, dread of the truth lurking outside, the overwhelming urge to flee echoing in her veins. She grasped the knob tightly, feeling its cold metal bite into her skin. In an unsteady exhale, she turned it slowly, each click echoing like a countdown in her mind. The door creaked open, unveiling a corridor that looked much older than the attic. Pale wallpaper, stained with grime and despair, peeled away, exposing wood beneath. It smelled of mildew and decay. The whisper rose again, more urgent, swirling through the air as the flickering light bulb overhead sputtered, threatening to plunge them into darkness. "Sarah!" It was less a call and more a command. The shadows tugged insistently at her feet, beckoning her to delve deeper. "Run!" she shouted to Jack and Lily, throwing herself into the corridor. Panic surged as they darted forward, the unfamiliar surroundings wrapping around them like a vice. They had to escape, but every corner they turned felt wrong and foreboding. Footfalls echoed behind them, too light, too quick, an unsettling rhythm. "What is that?" Jack panted, glancing over his shoulder. The hallway stretched out endlessly, fear skewing perception, warping reality around them. "It's nothing," Sarah lied through gritted teeth, her heart racing as they rushed further into the unknown. But deep inside her, she knew the truth was much worse than the shadows chasing them. As they rounded another corner, Sarah collided with something solid, the air rushing from her lungs. She blinked rapidly, dazed, and realized they had come to an ancient wooden door, partially ajar. A flickering light danced beyond the threshold, casting long shadows that swayed mockingly. "Mom!" Lily cried, eyes wide with terror. "We shouldn't." But as the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like a sinister embrace, Sarah felt the truth pull at her just as strongly. With the shadows gathering again behind them, an unsettling choice loomed. Would they step into the light, or flee into the darkness? In that moment of stillness, a chilling voice snaked through the air. Come join us. What revelation awaited them within that intoxicating glow? What darkness had they yet to uncover? With trembling hands, Sarah pushed the door open wider, heart pounding in her chest like a caged beast desperate to escape. The flickering light inside bathed her in a warm glow that felt foreign and wrong, contrasting sharply with the cold terror lurking behind her. Mom! Jack pulled at her arm, urgency lacing his voice. We need to go. But curiosity clawed at her, an insatiable urge to understand what lay within, to confront the source of the whispers that promised both answers and horror. The promise of light felt like a deceptive mirage. Just a peek, she murmured, stepping inside, her children hesitating behind her. The air shifted, charged with something beyond comprehension. The room revealed itself, a small study cluttered with dust-covered books and strange artifacts. Shelves lined with faded tomes reached toward the ceiling, their spines cracked and aged as if holding centuries of secrets. A dark wooden desk sat at the far end, its surface littered with yellowed papers and an antique lamp that cast the flickering glow a heartbeat against the encroaching darkness. Mom, please. Jack's whisper broke through her reverie. Stay close, she replied, turning back to reassure her children. The shadows lingered just beyond the threshold of the door, pulsing with an impatient hunger. Sarah felt them probing, their chill grazing the nape of her neck like fingers wrapping around her spine. Look! Lily pointed toward the desk, where a single book lay open. The pages fluttered, as if caught in a gentle breeze, but the windows were shut tight. Intrigued, Sarah approached it. The scrawled handwriting filled the page, an incantation, perhaps? A history? She strained to read it, but the ink twisted and curled in a dizzying dance, evading her comprehension. The air thickened, a heavy presence crashing down on her chest, squeezing her breath. Something's not right, Jack said, inching away, fear painting his face stark white. A sudden noise burst from the hallway, a jarring crack like thunder echoing in the silence. The door slammed shut, plunging them into the flickering shadows. Panic electrified the air. Mom! Jack screamed, frantically pulling at the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like the house itself was alive, a beast balking against its captives. We're trapped. Lily whimpered, the tremble in her voice slicing through Sarah's earlier resolve. Something stirred in the study, a low rumbling that resonated through the floorboards, a life of its own awakening. Stay close. Sarah commanded as she turned back to the darkened space, where the shadows began to swirl with purpose, forming shapes that writhed and beckoned, a sinister dance enticing her to join. Mom, don't. It's trying to trick you. Jack gasped, his wide eyes reflecting the chaotic light. Shush, she murmured, caught in the pull of the voices, the promise of knowledge luring her. With every passing second, the study felt less of a refuge and more like a snare closing around them, thickening with dread. We have to fight this. She shouted, suddenly resolute, pushing against the invisible force trying to sway her. But the whispers rose again, louder this time, a cacophony of lost souls pleading and taunting. Come join us, they chanted, echoing in her mind, the promise of connection reaching out like tendrils of fog. Mom, remember. We're a family. Jack cried, desperation spilling over. For the first time, Sarah hesitated, battling the whispers in her mind. The promise was seductive, but the bond she felt to her children, the warmth of their shared breath, ignited a ferocity within her, an unwillingness to succumb. But the room shuddered violently, books falling from the shelves, sending clouds of dust swirling like panic in the air. Whatever haunted this space was growing restless, furious at their resistance. Now. Sarah looked at Jack and Lily, eyes burning with determination. On 3, we run for the door. 1, her pulse raced. 2, shadows loomed closer, reaching. 3, she lunged forward, calling her children to follow her lead, trusting their bond against the brewing malevolence. But as they reached the door, it darkened, an unyielding barrier promising to consume them. In that terrible moment, the shadows surged forth, eager to claim their prize. What awaited them beyond the barrier? Would they break free, or was it too late to escape the darkness that called them home? As Sarah lunged for the door, the shadows reared back, a dark tide crashing against their solid resolve. The pulsating darkness thickened, wrapping around her like a noose. She felt the weight of despair pressing down, threatening to snuff out her will. Jack and Lily clutched her, their small fingers digging into her arms like tiny lifelines in a storm. "Mom, we can't." Lily's voice trembled with fear. But Sarah pressed forward, dragging her children with her, determination fueling her fight against the oppressive force surrounding them. With every step, it felt as if the room itself twisted, crushing them from every side, squeezing out hope. "Please, don't take us," Jack begged, tears brimming in his eyes. From the depths of the shadows came a whisper, soft yet insistent, wrapping around her thoughts. "You will find peace, join us." The word seeped into her mind, curling around her senses like smoke, obscuring the truth she desperately needed to hold on to. She fought against it, breathing deep, summoning every ounce of strength she could muster. With a wild scream, she hurled herself against the door, feeling the heavy weight of darkness collide with her body. For a brief heartbeat, it felt as though they might be swallowed whole. But then, something shifted, light flared from their united strength, an ember of family fire against the creeping shadows. In that moment, a blinding flash erupted from deep inside the darkness. It pushed back, forcing the dark figures to writhe in agony, shrieking in an echo that reverberated through the stale air. "Now, pull!" Sarah shouted, her voice cracking, desperation cutting through the terror as she turned back to the door. The light grew, shining with the ferocity of 1,000 burning suns, illuminating the corner of the study where shadows writhed in discontent. Jack and Lily, inspired by their mother's fervor, strained against the door, pulling together, shouting, pushing the chains of fear back into the darkness. "We won, let go!" They screamed in unison, their voices rising above the chaos, defiant against the malevolence, and then, as if in response to their relentless refusal to succumb, a beam of light shot forth from the space beneath the door, a gap widening as the darkness recoiled. With a final heave, the door burst open, unleashing a torrent of blinding light that flooded the room. The force of it propelled Sarah and her children forward as they tumbled through the doorway, landing hard on the floor of the hallway. Still in shock, they scrambled to their knees, breathing heavily as they glanced back into the study. The door slammed shut on its own, leaving behind a silence that wrapped around them like a shroud. "Mom, what was that?" Jack whispered, awe and fear tangling in his voice. "I don't know," Sarah breathed, hardly able to respond as she pulled her children close, her heart racing still. "But it's not over." A chill crept through the air, one that sent icy fingers trailing down her spine. It was a feeling that clung to them, hungry and relentless, as if shadows still loitered beyond the door, plotting and waiting. "What do we do now?" Lily asked, her voice small, eyes wide and fearful. "We need to find a way out of this place." "We can't stay here," Sarah replied, glancing around into the dimness that seemed to stretch out endlessly. But the house had shifted again, every corner looked unfamiliar, as if it were alive and breathing its secrets into the air. They rose cautiously, an echo of laughter danced through the halls, a chilling sound that beckoned them deeper into the unknown. It was teasing and childish, echoing their very fears, a mocking reminder of the danger they had just escaped. But one thing was certain, whatever dark force was hiding within the walls was far from finished. "Stay close," Sarah whispered, feeling the tug of something sinister once more. Their journey was only beginning, and the shadows were alive, whispering secrets and promises, daring them to delve deeper. What lay ahead? Would they uncover the truth of the whispers, or would they only find more terror waiting for them in the shadows? The silence that followed pressed in on them like a heavy fog. Sarah could feel her heart drumming wildly in her chest, the sound deafening in the stillness. She needed them to move, to escape whatever foul forces lingered in this cursed house. "Come on," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper, her instincts screaming to run. Jack and Lily scrambled to her side, fingers intertwined like a chain, but their eyes mirrored the confusion and fear swirling inside her. The laughter echoed again, sharper this time, slicing through the silence like a knife. It sent chills skittering across Sarah's skin. "What was that?" she breathed, straining to listen. "Something's playing with us," Jack said, glancing back toward the door. His voice trembled, but there was a flicker of defiance in his eyes. We need to find a way out. They moved cautiously down the narrow hallway, the wood creaking beneath their steps. The dim light from the flickering bulbs cast long shadows that danced along the walls, reaching toward them as if hungry. The old portraits lining the hallway seemed to watch with hollow eyes, faces twisted in silent screams. "I don't like this place, Mom," Lily whispered, her voice so soft it was nearly consumed by the oppressive atmosphere. "What if it comes for us?" "Just keep moving," Sarah urged, forcing her feet to carry her forward. But every instinct screamed for her to turn back, to go back to the safety of that study, where they had confronted the darkness. As they reached the end of the hall, they were met with a staircase spiraling upward into darkness. "Up?" Jack quirked an eyebrow, uncertainty flickering on his face. "Or down?" "Up," Sarah decided quickly, though doubt curled in her stomach. It felt right, or maybe it was the only option left. They climbed slowly, the air growing colder, thicker with dread. Each step sent echoes bouncing around them, a chorus of whispers and unspoken threats. At the top, they reached a landing that stretched into an open space. It felt wrong. The air was stifling, and a deeper darkness loomed in the corners of the room. Just as they entered the abyss, the door at the end swung open, creaking ominously. A gust of wind rushed past them, carrying with it a scent of decay and something far worse, despair. "No!" Sarah cried out, instinct taking over yet again as she grabbed her children to pull them back. But it was too late. From the darkness, a shape emerged, no more than a shadow itself, features indiscernible. It glided toward them, moving too smoothly, like a film played at double speed. "Join us," it whispered, the same voice as before, slithering through the air, wrapping around her heart and squeezing tight. "No!" Jack shouted, stepping in front of Lily, his small frame dwarfed by the creeping dread. "Get away from us!" With the courage of an unexpected hero, Jack pushed forward, the tiny flicker of light flickering in his palm. It glimmered defiantly against the shadow, and for a moment, the figure halted. But only for a moment. "Fools!" A voice echoed from every corner, deep and gnarly, flooding their ears. "You think you can escape?" Panic ignited in Sarah's chest. The walls around them groaned and shifted as if the house itself revolted against their will to leave. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears. "Mom?" Lily squeaked, her voice breaking the overwhelming tension. "What now?" "Fight!" Sarah shouted, rallying her remaining strength as fear spiraled around them. They couldn't slacken, couldn't give up. But in the chaos, every exit vanished. The darkness folded in around them, wrapping tighter and tighter as the laughter resumed, echoing like a macabre chant that dripped with malice. It seemed to come from every shadow, mocking their fight. "We can't let it take us!" Sarah screamed, her breath staggering as the oppressive force closed in, tightening its grasp on her hopes and desires. But what would happen next? Would they fight their way through the dark? Or would the shadows finally snuff out their light? The dark mass before them surged forward, its sinister whispers weaving an agonizing tapestry of dread. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the shadows wrap tighter, engulfing her family in their malevolence. Jack's grip tightened around Lily's hand, his small body trembling with both fear and fierce determination. "Stay together!" she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaotic whispers. "We're getting out!" With every ounce of courage, Sarah pushed forward, dragging her children behind her. Each step felt like wading through molasses, the weight of their terror threatening to drag them down. She could feel the fear coursing through her children, palpable and sharp. "Mommy, we can't, please don't let it take us." Jack whimpered, glancing nervously at the looming shadows advancing towards them. "I won't let that happen," she vowed, sweat dripping down her brow. With every ounce of her being, she clawed at the growing darkness, refusing to let fear seep into her resolve. They were at a crossroads, ahead was a dark doorway that seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. The laughter grew louder, echoing against the walls, a chorus of mocking voices promising despair. "Join us," they sang, inviting and horrid. "Not now." Sarah screamed defiantly, pushing the words back into the shadows. She felt something shift around them, the air thickening as she tightened her grip on her children. "We have to go." The moment shifted. A flicker of light sparked from the depths of their solidarity, illuminating the darkness as they pressed forward. "Together. Focus. We are stronger than this," she growled, the truth of her words igniting something within her. Suddenly, Jack stepped in front of his mother, eyes blazing with a fierce light that contradicted his trembling frame. "You want to take us? We are a family," he declared, his tiny voice ringing with an unwavering defiance that echoed through the nightmare. The shadows recoiled, momentarily halted by the spark of childish bravery. But the moment was fleeting, and Sarah could feel the pulse of darkness thicken around them again. "Now," she urged, eyes darting towards the door, her mind racing. They barreled toward the opening, uncertainty flooding her thoughts, yet her focus remained clear. They had to escape. With a burst of speed, Sarah flung herself and her children through the threshold, crashing into a world unexpectedly bright and welcoming. They tumbled onto a soft patch of grass, sunlight cascading over them in a warm embrace. Dazed, they scrambled to their feet, disoriented by the drastic shift from darkness to light. "We made it!" Jack exclaimed, the wonder in his voice pushing back against their earlier fear. But Sarah's heart sank. They were free, for now. The whispers faded but not forgotten, like a morbid song drifting into a quiet distance. She recalled the terrifying weight of their pursuit, wondering if it was truly over or if darkness still loomed unseen. "We can't go back," she stated firmly, asserting her resolve. "Never," Jack and Lily echoed, and Sarah's heart swelled. As they walked across the familiar yard, the sunlight scattered any remnants of fear clinging to them. Each step filled with a blend of relief and determination. They were safe, but the shadows had not vanished into nothingness. Sarah felt their lingering presence, trapped yet restless. Days turned into weeks, filled with the mundane yet precious rhythms of life. They reveled in laughter, filled their home with love. The haunted memory remained a chilling reminder of alternate paths that could have ensnared them. Sarah talked to the kids about bravery, teaching them that facing fears often meant summoning courage from within. One stormy night, the winds howled outside, rattling the windows as if the house itself whispered their names. But within their walls, warmth and laughter filled the air, steadfast against the darkness threatening to invade. "Mom?" Lily asked, bundling up next to Sarah on the couch. "Is the scary man still out there?" The lump in Sarah's throat eased as she responded, "He's not stronger than us as long as we stand together." Jack nodded, heartening Sarah with the belief etched in his eyes. They turned towards the window, watching the shadows dance across the lawn, knowing that despite the chilling presence, they wouldn't let their nightmares dictate their lives. The burdens of the past no longer suffocated the family. The shadows stood vigilant, but they were outnumbered by countless moments of joy. The darkness could not steal their light. Instead, it became part of their story, a testament that survival wasn't merely about escaping the darkness, but learning to shine bright in spite of it. And with that understanding, Sarah smiled, enveloping her children in a tight embrace, hearts synchronized in resilience. Together, they would face whatever storm may come, for love was the greatest armor of all. Now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. They had faced the shadows and emerged into the light. For the first time in weeks, she felt the tightness in her chest ease. With hope blossoming inside, they were ready to start anew. A family unbreakable, even by the shadows lurking in the twilight. This was their time to shine. You need to subscribe now to our channel for exclusive stories that will send chills down your spine. This is the moment to show your support by smashing the like button now. And don't just stop there. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking conclusion. We want to hear from you. Also, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely have to see this thrilling conclusion. The shadows may be lurking, but our community shines the brightest when we stick together. You won't want to miss what comes next.